Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are diving deep into the foundations of the global economy and the powerful forces that shape it. Today, we are wrestling with a corporate giant that influences everything from commodity prices to climate policy, all while literally controlling the genetic code of the food on your plate.
That's right. Our mission today is to extract the essential knowledge about Corteva, Inc. This deep dive, well, it pulls its information from historical filings, complex financial disclosures, and the battlegrounds of high-stakes litigation.
So we're getting a full picture.
We are. It's giving you a comprehensive 360-degree understanding of this organization's scale and, more importantly, its strategic pivot.
When we talk Corteva, we're talking about an American agricultural powerhouse focusing on two core segments.
Yeah.
Seeds and crop protection products.
Right.
And crucially, the sources show this is no longer just a story of synthetic chemistry. While their crop protection segment still includes classic herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides, it is rapidly incorporating what they call biologicals.
Yeah, these natural, often microbially derived solutions.
Yeah.
And this blend of legacy power and future-focused innovation is what makes Corteva so fascinating. We found the company is headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, but its reach is truly global.
How global are we talking?
Selling products in over 110 countries. And when you interact with their seeds, you are often interacting with the Pioneer Hybrid International brand, which they inherited and maintain as just a massive global presence.
Okay, let's unpack this name, because here's where it gets really interesting, and I think it sets the stage for the core tension of their business model. Corteva. It sounds modern, but it's deeply rooted. The name is a fusion. Cor, which is Latin for heart, suggesting stability and legacy combined with teva.
Which is the Hebrew word for nature.
Exactly.
And what's fascinating here is that dual identity embedded right in the branding. They aren't just selling chemistry. They are projecting an image of being at the heart of nature.
Which implies a corporate consciousness about the environmental impact of agriculture.
Right. And it signals their intent to lead the biological revolution while, holding on to the deep established foundation of their seed business. It's a very, very calculated choice for a company born from industrial giants.
It's so much more than just clever marketing. To me, it's a roadmap. It tells us they know they have to balance the high-yield, high-IP world of traditional genetically modified seeds and synthetics with the sustainable, lower-residue future that's being demanded by consumers and regulators. That tension between the core and the teva is the central conflict we'll explore in this deep dive.
Absolutely. So to summarize our foundation, we have a massive, globally scaled agribusiness, headquartered in Indiana, with a massive Pioneer brand footprint and a mission statement implied by Latin and Hebrew roots, a mission that's constantly struggling to reconcile history and future.
Let's start with history. Corteva feels like it's always been around, but it is in fact a very young company.
Very.
It was born from one of the largest corporate marriages and subsequent divorces in recent history. We have to understand its origin story, which is completely tied to Dow and DuPont.
The context is absolutely crucial because Corteva didn't start from scratch. It was engineered. It was formally established in March 2018, initially as the agriculture subsidiary of the recently merged Dow-DuPont entity.
Right, that Dow-DuPont merger in 2017. That was always intended to be a stepping stone, wasn't it? A mechanism to combine assets, streamline things.
Exactly, and then surgically separate the combined company into 3 hyper-focused, specialized entities.
That's the key strategic move. Instead of keeping a sprawling conglomerate that was simultaneously in specialty chemicals, material science, and agriculture, they created 3 pure plays.
And Corteva became the pure agriculture play.
The moment of true independence then came in June 2019.
Precisely. That's when Dow-DuPont completed the corporate spinoff. That's the moment Corteva became an entirely independent, publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange.
Under the ticker, CTVA.
Yep. And this separation allowed Corteva's management to focus 100% of their capital, their R&D, and their strategy purely on global agricultural markets.
Without competing internally.
Right, without competing with the Dow Materials Science Division or the DuPont Specialty Products Division for resources, pure focus.
And that focus is what allowed them to scale so rapidly. I mean, we're not talking about a startup that grew over 20 years. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar operation that was meticulously extracted from 2 chemical powerhouses and instantly placed on the global stage.
It was. It really speaks volumes about the value the parent companies placed on agriculture as a separate, high-growth sector.
It does. And that inheritance is visible in their financial footprint. Looking at the 2024 data, we can truly put the company's size into perspective for you. This isn't just big, it's infrastructure defining the global food system.
The numbers are staggering, and we really do need to pause on them.
Let's do it. Their 2024 revenue clocked in at US $16.9 billion. That's a massive operating power.
16.9 billion. But to me, the most telling figure is their total assets.
Yes, US $40.8 billion.
$30 billion in assets. I mean, that figure tells you everything about the legacy they inherited. It's not just cash. It represents a vast physical and intellectual infrastructure.
So what's included in that?
Well, think about that figure in context. It covers hundreds of research and development facilities worldwide, an immense global supply chain network spanning those 110 countries,
Okay.
proprietary germplasm libraries, which are the actual genetic blueprints of the seeds, and, critically, their intellectual property portfolio of patents.
Wow, 40 billion. To put that into perspective for you, that asset base is larger than the market capitalization of some major automotive or airline companies.
It is.
It means Corteva has deep infrastructural stability, allowing them to absorb multi-billion-dollar legal disputes or major acquisitions without shaking the core business.
Exactly. And that deep stability is reflected further down the balance sheet. Their total equity stands at US $23.8 billion.
And what does that number really represent?
That represents the core financial capacity to fund their massive strategic movements, like the pivot into biologicals, and conduct the long-term, expensive R&D necessary for genetic engineering in seeds, which, often takes 10 to 15 years to yield a profitable product.
A decade or more. It's a long runway.
A very long runway.
Speaking of profitability, what does that immense scale translate into operationally?
In 2024, they posted an operating income of US $1.81 billion, which resulted in a net income of US $907 million.
So just under $1 billion in pure profit.
Mm-hmm. And those are the profits that fuel their global expansion, their constant need for regulatory defense, and their ongoing acquisitions. To manage an enterprise of this size, they rely on a vast workforce, confirmed in 2024 at 22,000 employees globally.
22,000.
That's the sheer physical and intellectual weight of this organization.
That definitely clarifies the scale. Now, let's circle back to what those 22,000 employees are actually producing. It's that dual strategy. Seeds and chemistry, or as they now prefer, crop protection.
The seed business is absolutely foundational. This is their high-margin anchor, built entirely on proprietary genetics, extensive R&D, and the critical intellectual property protected by patents. They don't just sell seeds, they sell highly engineered genetic packages optimized for specific geographies and conditions.
And the crop protection products are the chemical and increasingly natural tools farmers use to ensure those optimized seeds reach their full yield potential.
That's right.
Without effective protection, the genetic advantages engineered into the seeds are, they're wasted.
Absolutely. And we must be specific about the product categories here. Traditionally, this meant synthetic chemistry. Herbicides to kill competing weeds, insecticides to manage damaging pests, and fungicides to protect against plant diseases. But the final category listed in their portfolio is the most dynamic one right now.
Biologicals.
Biologicals.
The sources define biologicals explicitly as natural herbicides, but we know the field is much broader than that. Can we elaborate on what that strategic distinction really means?
It means moving away from synthesized chemicals made in a factory and moving toward naturally derived solutions. This includes microbial products like beneficial fungi or bacteria used to manage pests or enhance soil health, or naturally derived compounds that still serve a pesticidal function.
So it's a fundamental shift in where the solution comes from.
It is. And this distinction is critical because it signifies a major strategic shift toward solutions that face less regulatory backlash, appeal to sustainability trends, and are a key part of their future growth strategy. It's the Teva side of Corteva demanding some very serious investment.
And that pivot is the core story of modern Corteva. I mean, if you want to know where the modern agricultural industry is headed, you have to watch where companies like this are retiring old chemistry and aggressively pouring capital into new approaches. It's a game of risk management and future-proofing.
And we have a perfect illustration of this with the decision regarding chlorpyrifos. This wasn't some minor product. Chlorpyrifos was a powerful, long-standing, and highly effective insecticide developed decades ago, originally by Dow Chemical.
It was a legacy product, a flagship product for years.
It was.
Yet in February 2020, Corteva made the monumental decision to cease production entirely. So why retire a legacy powerhouse product?
The sources clearly pinpoint the reason. Declining sales, which were directly linked to mounting scientific evidence connecting the product to neurological problems in children.
This wasn't just a hypothetical risk then.
Not at all. The data was accumulating. And this scientific pressure was then amplified by immediate regulatory action, including subsequent bans across the European Union and in several key U.S. states like California.
This is a textbook example of corporate risk meeting public health. For a company of Corteva's immense scale, stopping the production of a mature, revenue-generating chemical is financially painful. I mean, that has to hurt the bottom line.
It does. But it clearly reached a tipping point where the associated legal liability, the cost of regulatory defense, and the irreparable damage to their corporate image outweighed the product's dwindling profitability.
So it's a business decision, but one driven by science and public perception.
It absolutely signals a shift in corporate calculus. The market itself, driven by consumer concerns and stricter regulation, was essentially pushing the chemical out. Corteva had the foresight to choose an organized retreat rather than fighting a prolonged, costly, and ultimately losing battle against public opinion and evolving science.
It shows that even agricultural titans are highly sensitive to ethical and regulatory scrutiny when clear, documented health risks are involved.
I think so.
But the strategy was never just about stepping back. It was about pivoting forward. While they were exiting controversial synthetic chemistry, they were simultaneously going on an incredibly aggressive shopping spree.
Oh, absolutely. This proves the biological shift is absolutely real. We see concrete evidence of this strategic pivot in early 2023. This movement toward an emerging biologicals product portfolio wasn't theoretical. It was backed by over $1 billion in capital commitment.
Okay, let's detail those acquisitions from March 2023. First, they acquired the Stoller Group. This is a major maker of natural pesticides for a significant $1.2 billion.
$1.2 billion.
That's a serious statement of intent.
A $1 billion acquisition in the natural pesticide space screams that biologicals are no longer a niche, but a core strategic pillar for the future. Stoller brought established products, strong distribution channels, and immediate market access in a growing sector.
So they weren't just buying technology.
No, they were buying revenue and market share instantly. It was a turnkey operation for them.
And they doubled down immediately after. They also acquired Symborg, an expert in microbiological technologies based in Murcia, Spain. Why is the combination of Stoller and Symborg so strategic for Corteva?
Well, it's a classic strategy of buying both offense and defense, product and R&D capability. Stoller gave them the immediate market product and the sales pipeline.
Right.
Symborg, however, gave them the deep, specialized intellectual property in microbiological technologies. We're talking about living organisms, fungi, bacteria, and yeasts that can be applied to crops.
Can you give us an example of what that microbiological technology actually does? I mean, for you listening, what is Corteva getting from Symborg?
They are gaining advanced capability in things like biostimulants and biofertilizers. For instance, Symborg specializes in microbes that can help plants fix nitrogen more efficiently from the atmosphere.
Which reduces the need for synthetic fertilizers.
Exactly. Costly and, polluting synthetic fertilizers. They also work on natural microbial-based biopesticides that can suppress soil-borne diseases. This is the cutting edge of sustainable agriculture solutions that work with the plant and the soil ecosystem.
So the implication here is powerful. Corteva is actively repositioning itself not just as a seller of seeds and chemical protection, but as an integrated provider of sustainable farm solutions.
That's the goal.
And biologicals are often viewed as having far fewer regulatory hurdles than synthetic chemistry, leaving fewer residues and offering a significant marketing advantage in terms of sustainability. It is a necessary and concrete strategic move.
It is, and yet, despite this massive pivot, we see that they are not abandoning their chemical legacy. They are pushing the envelope simultaneously in both synthetic and biological R&D.
A dual track.
A dual track. We see this duality in their most recent product introductions and partnerships.
Okay, let's discuss the 2025 introduction. Corteva fungicide, designed for corn and soybeans. This is a very powerful multi-component synthetic chemical product. It proves the chemical division is still heavily investing.
The structure of Corteva is key to understanding modern crop protection engineering. It contains a blend of 3 specific chemical components: flutriafol, azoxystrobin, and fluindapyr. The reason for this 3-part chemical cocktail is crucial.
It's not just for show.
Not at all. It's designed for complexity and resilience.
So why not just use 1 or 2? Why 3?
Because diseases develop resistance so quickly. Flutriafol is often used for systemic protection, meaning the plant absorbs it and it fights the fungus from within.
Okay, that's one mode of action.
Right. Azoxystrobin is another mode of action, often inhibiting fungal respiration. And fluindapyr is a component that provides broad spectrum control and enhances the activity of the others.
So by combining three different modes of action,
They dramatically reduce the chance of rapid resistance developing in the field, ensuring the product remains effective for longer.
it's a constant arms race against fungal evolution. And their target list for Forcevo confirms this high-impact focus,
Hmm.
combating common high-impact diseases like tar spot, southern rust, and frog eye leaf spot.
Hmm?
Tar spot specifically has become a genuine crisis for North American corn producers in recent years.
The market need is immense. A new, highly effective multi-component tool against tar spot, which can devastate entire cornfields in a matter of weeks, represents enormous potential revenue.
So while the biological pivot gets all the press,
The continuous innovation in synthetic chemistry remains essential for maintaining global food supply stability. You can't just walk away from it.
and beyond just field products, they're also making these macro-level strategic moves that connect agriculture to global climate policy, notably the partnership announced in November 2024 with BP.
This is a fascinating connection. It fundamentally expands Corteva's relevance beyond just the farm gate. They are partnering with BP to develop a low-carbon intensive biofeedstock for the production of sustainable aviation biofuel, also known as S.
So Corteva's agricultural outputs, the things they grow or the materials derived from the crops they enable, are now being positioned as core components in the energy transition. That's a game changer.
It certainly is. Sustainable aviation fuel is one of the most critical pathways for decarbonizing the hard-to-abate aviation sector. By becoming a reliable supplier of biofeedstock, whether that's specialized oilseeds or other crop outputs, Corteva is essentially integrating the agricultural supply chain into the global energy market.
That's a huge leap.
It demonstrates a massive forward-looking strategy that views sustainable agriculture not just as a food system solution, but as an essential element of climate mitigation strategy globally.
That partnership fundamentally alters their market identity. And finally, just to reinforce their local footprint, we note the acquisition in November 2024 of the naming rights to the Indiana Farmers Coliseum at the Indiana State Fairgrounds.
A classic move.
A strong move to connect their Indianapolis headquarters to the state's agricultural identity.
It's a good, tangible example of their commitment to being visible in the agricultural heartland, balancing their massive global reach with local engagement.
Okay, now we step onto the battlefield. A company of Corteva's size, operating on proprietary genetics and high-margin chemicals, lives under relentless legal scrutiny.
Yeah, constantly.
It is constantly fighting on three fronts: regulatory defense, patent wars, and antitrust challenges. Let's dive deep into these legal mechanisms.
Starting with regulatory defense, we have the Enlist Duo controversy from July 2020. Enlist Duo is one of their major weed killers. It contains a powerful combination of 2004D, choline, and glyphosate.
Glyphosate, of course, being the active ingredient in Bayer's Roundup, is already controversial. And 2,4-D is an older herbicide ingredient.
It is. And environmentalists attempted to block sales, claiming the combination posed unacceptable risks, specifically negative effects on non-target plants and wildlife through drift.
So the chemical blowing where it's not supposed to go.
Exactly. And the key here, and where the nuance matters, is the technicality that saved the product line. A U.S. appeals court ultimately ruled that Corteva could continue sales, but the justification relied entirely on highly specialized scientific input from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA.
Wait, why did the court side with Corteva, given the known issues with chemical drift, which is what impacts non-target plants? Let's break down this technical part.
This is the chemical engineering trick. The court didn't look at 2004D as a generic chemical. It looked at the specific formulation.
Oh, the
2004D choline salt.
Okay, the choline salt.
The EPA studies showed that this specific salt formulation possessed a significantly lower volatility than older, more traditional formulations of 2004D.
So why does the volatility of the salt matter so much? What does that mean for a farmer or their neighbor?
Volatility is the tendency of a chemical to evaporate into a gas. High volatility means that, after application, the chemical can easily turn into vapor, rise up, and drift miles away, causing damage to sensitive crops like vineyards or organic fields.
Which is the very definition of unreasonable harm.
Exactly. By engineering a formulation with dramatically reduced volatility, Corteva could demonstrate that their product, when applied correctly, was much less likely to drift.
So the court essentially accepted that the chemical engineering solved the major environmental complaint, securing the product line. That highly nuanced technical detail is what makes the difference between billions in sales and a complete regulatory ban.
It really is. It underscores how the high-stakes agricultural chemical world is defined by technical specificity.
That win secures a critical product. But securing products also means fighting your peers, which brings us to the high-stakes patent war with their biggest rival, Bayer Monsanto.
A war spanning from 2022 to the present.
This isn't just a friendly disagreement. This is a foundational fight over genetic blueprints, which are arguably the most valuable assets either company holds.
Oh, absolutely. It is the agricultural equivalent of the patent wars fought by smartphone manufacturers, only instead of touchscreens, they are fighting over DNA sequences.
And Bayer initiated the major action in August 2022.
They did, suing Corteva for breach of contractual obligations related to the development and commercialization of E3 soybeans.
Okay, what are E3 soybeans and why are contractual obligations so central to this dispute?
E3 soybeans are a massively important technology platform. The E3 stands for Enlist E3, meaning they are genetically engineered to tolerate 3 different types of herbicides: glyphosate, glufosinate, and Corteva's 2,40,40.
So it's a stacked trait.
Exactly. This tolerance allows farmers to spray fields with these powerful weed killers without harming the soybean crop itself. The contractual dispute centers on the licensing agreements. Bayer claims Corteva overstepped the bounds of the original agreements governing how this licensed trait could be developed and sold.
So they were essentially fighting over the rules of engagement for using each other's technology. And Corteva immediately hit back with a countersuit.
Yes. Corteva countersued, alleging Bayer infringed upon Corteva's own patents on a specific gene used in Corteva's flagship product, Enlist corn. This gene provides resistance to certain herbicides, including Bayer's own Roundup.
So it's a classic case of, you're misusing my tech, and no, you're misusing my tech.
It is. It's a fight over trait stacking,
Mhm.
the process of genetically engineering seeds to contain multiple desirable traits from different companies. Corteva is essentially saying, you used our patented genetic component without permission in your own stacked product.
The stakes here are just astronomical, potentially billions in future licensing fees and control over the next generation of seed technology. So what is the current status of this titanic legal slugfest?
The current status, as of May 2025, is a pause.
A pause. Why?
And the reason for the pause demonstrates the complexity of intellectual property in this sector. The case was put on hold because the U.S. Supreme Court is considering whether to take up a separate, unrelated, patent-related case concerning genetic intellectual property.
So the entire outcome of the Corteva-Bayer fight might hinge on how the Supreme Court rules on a completely different case.
Precisely. That separate ruling could potentially redefine the boundaries of what is patentable in agricultural genetics or how patent infringement is calculated. The fact that 2 massive companies stopped their billion-dollar litigation to wait for the highest court in the land shows how critical and complex the infrastructure of intellectual property is in this modern agricultural landscape.
Okay, we've covered regulatory defense and patent warfare. Now, let's discuss the third major legal challenge, which comes not from a rival, but from the U.S. government itself, the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC.
And this targets their fundamental market practices.
In September 2022, the FTC, in partnership with several state attorneys general, sued both Corteva and its competitor, Syngenta. This lawsuit is highly specific and attacks what the government alleges is an anti-competitive practice embedded in their discount structures. The allegation is that the company's U.S.-based discount programs block and restrict generic competition. Can we break down what this pay-to-block scheme actually entails?
Well, think of it this way. Corteva and Syngenta are the dominant players. They don't block generic competitors by force. They block them through financial incentives.
So not with lawyers, but with spreadsheets.
Exactly. They allegedly structure massive lucrative rebates and discounts for distributors, retailers, and even farmers. But those discounts are only available if the purchaser commits to buying certain high volumes of the brand name product and, crucially, avoids purchasing generic alternatives that are often cheaper.
So the argument is that the distributors are essentially paid to keep the generic products off the shelf, even if they are chemically identical and cheaper. That sounds like a powerful antitrust claim aimed at preserving market dominance.
It is, and the FTC argues that this scheme ultimately harms the farmer and the consumer. It stifles competition, it prevents smaller generic producers from entering the market, and it keeps the prices of essential agricultural inputs artificially inflated.
The FTC is challenging the fundamental way these companies use their financial power to maintain market share.
They are.
This challenge is really serious. What's the latest status?
The update from January 2024 is critical. A federal judge denied a motion by both Corteva and Syngenta to dismiss the lawsuit.
And that's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. That denial means the judge believes the FTC's claims have sufficient legal merit to proceed to discovery and potentially a trial. This puts substantial pressure on Corteva to either justify or fundamentally restructure its discount programs, which are a cornerstone of their current U.S. market strategy. They are fighting the government over the very structure of agricultural commerce.
The legal battles are fought in courtrooms and regulatory agencies. But there is another battle fought in the court of public opinion, which can be far less forgiving and far quicker to judge.
And much more unpredictable.
And we see a clear example of this tension with the beagle testing incident.
This incident, brought to light in March 2019, really shows the tightrope walk required of a modern agrochemical company. The criticism was driven by the Humane Society of the United States, or HSUS. They criticized Corteva for commissioning Charles River Laboratories to conduct necessary testing on a new fungicide.
And the specifics, as you mentioned earlier, are difficult. The testing involved 36 beagles being force-fed pesticides over a period of time. Now, this is a standard, albeit ethically controversial, practice in toxicology.
Right. It's required to generate the data on lethal doses and long-term systemic effects before a product can be approved by regulatory bodies worldwide.
But it immediately became a massive public relations firestorm. Corteva's initial defense was strictly legalistic, arguing that this specific difficult testing protocol was explicitly required by regulatory authorities.
It was the classic compliance defense. We are doing this because the law mandates it to protect people.
Right. Don't blame us, blame the regulations.
Exactly.
But in the age of rapid social media and high ethical awareness regarding animal welfare, the compliance defense often falls flat. The public pressure, fueled by the HSUS campaign, mounted instantly.
It did, and this is where we see modern corporate agility. Despite their initial legally sound defense, the potential brand damage was clearly calculated as too high. Instead of engaging in a protracted public fight, Corteva quickly reversed course.
Very quickly.
They agreed to immediately stop the tests and, demonstrating a high degree of responsiveness, worked to release all 36 animals.
And those animals were subsequently transferred to Michigan Humane for adoption, providing a positive resolution to a deeply negative story. This shows a keen awareness of the modern consumer's priorities. Continuing to adhere strictly to a decades-old, politically unpopular testing requirement, even if legally mandated, can cost far more in brand equity than the testing data itself is worth.
It highlights the difficult reality for these companies. They are caught between strict, often rigid, regulatory frameworks, which haven't always kept up with alternative testing methods, and a public that demands humane and ethical practices.
So in the end, they chose public perception over regulatory precedent.
They did. Corteva's quick reversal demonstrated a willingness to prioritize public image and ethical responsiveness, even if it meant challenging traditional compliance-driven testing protocols. They learned a very fast, very public lesson about the importance of managing ethical criticism in real time.
Now we project forward. After discussing the massive scale, the strategic pivot to biologicals, and the relentless legal and ethical pressures, we come to a highly provocative report from September 2025.
Yeah.
This suggests the entire corporate structure we've been analyzing might be headed for a radical second act.
This is perhaps the most significant near-term news impacting Corteva. The Wall Street Journal reported that the company was actively exploring a potential breakup.
And this isn't just speculation. When the journal reports internal discussions, it signals executive consideration and movement toward feasibility studies.
It means it's real. They're looking at it seriously.
And the proposed split is highly strategic, driving right down the middle of their business, separating its seed business from its pesticide or crop protection businesses.
This perfectly cleaves the core from the Teva, the chemical legacy, from the genetic future.
These strategic implications are enormous, and it circles back to the logic of the original Dow-DuPont spinoff. Why spinoff again?
The immediate answer is often to unlock shareholder value. Large, complex companies, especially those with high-growth segments bundled with high-risk legacy segments, are often conglomerate discounted by the market.
Meaning investors find it difficult to value them cleanly.
Exactly. They don't know if they're buying a stable value company or a risky growth company, so they undervalue the whole thing.
So the theory is, if you separate them, the market can value each entity based on its pure characteristics. The seed business, with its stable, high-margin revenue and massive intellectual property, the Pioneer brand, might be valued as a steady, reliable cash cow stock.
Exactly. And simultaneously, the crop protection segment, which now houses the entire high-growth, high-potential biologicals portfolio, alongside the legacy synthetic chemistry, could be valued as a specialized growth stock focused on sustainable innovation.
So it clarifies the investment thesis for both.
It does, but it also has a major dimension of risk mitigation. The legacy chemical segment, crop protection, is where the massive regulatory and legal liability resides. We're talking about the FTC antitrust case, the defensive enlist duo, the potential future lawsuits related to older chemicals.
So separating the two legally isolates that risk.
Right. If the crop protection company faces a multi-billion-dollar environmental liability lawsuit down the road, that legal exposure is isolated from the genetically clean, stable seed IP company. It's a classic move to protect the most valuable long-term asset, the germplasm and seed technology, from the volatility of the chemical market.
A firewall, essentially.
A corporate firewall. And crucially, it allows for extremely specialized capital allocation. The seed business needs patience and multi-decade R&D budgets. The crop protection business, particularly the biologicals future, needs fast, targeted acquisition capital and agile regulatory navigation.
So a separation allows each new entity to attract the specific type of investor best suited to its risk profile and growth path.
This feeds directly into the question of the biologicals pivot. Right now, that emerging biologicals portfolio sits within the legacy crop protection division alongside the synthetic fungicides and herbicides. If they execute the split, does the biologicals portfolio stay tethered to the synthetic chemical legacy, or does it become a distinct new entity? That decision will define the strategic future of agricultural innovation globally.
The September 2025 report suggests this is now the key existential question for Corteva's management. Are they stronger together, balancing risk and R&D across two massive segments, or are they more valuable and strategically agile apart? #outro.
As we synthesize everything we've covered, the portrait of Corteva Inc. is one of profound managed tension. This company is a microcosm of the entire modern agricultural world.
It really is.
It represents the struggle between the established, highly effective large-scale chemistry that defined the last century and the rapidly growing, strategically vital sector of sustainable biological solutions that must define the next.
We've seen that tension play out in real time. I mean, they are fighting the FTC over discount schemes while spending $1.2 billion to acquire natural pesticide leaders like Stoller.
Right. And they are defending nuanced chemical formulations like the 2,4-D choline salt formulation in court, while simultaneously using their agricultural outputs to fuel global decarbonization efforts via that BP partnership.
It's a company with one foot firmly planted in the past and one foot stepping into a very different future.
It is. Their future growth is entirely dependent on successfully navigating these simultaneous complex challenges, winning high-stakes patent wars with rivals like Bayer, adapting quickly to public ethical demands like the Beagle testing incident,
and continually satisfying strict regulatory frameworks while simultaneously reinventing their entire product line towards sustainability.
It's an engine of global agriculture, but one constantly fighting on multiple, vastly different fronts.
This deep dive has shown the immense, multifaceted nature of this corporate engine. It's a company defined by its powerful past, currently navigating a treacherous present of litigation and ethical scrutiny, all while strategizing for a radically different future.
And everything circles back to that fundamental question of structural integrity raised by the September 2025 potential breakup.
So, for you, our listener, here is our final provocative thought to chew on. If Corteva does execute a breakup, splitting its legacy seed business from its crop protection business, how might that separation accelerate or, conversely, impede the growth of that highly strategic new biologicals portfolio? What are the inherent risks and benefits of keeping those two types of businesses, high liability synthetic chemicals versus sustainable fast growth biologicals under one roof, versus allowing the biologicals division the capital and focus to stand entirely on its own? It's a risk-reward calculation that will shake the profitability and the sustainability of the global food system for decades to come.